Thank you, Abby.
Pleasure to have you this afternoon.
Okay.
Well, let's kick off this conversation with this particular rights issue comes at a time when a lot of developments are happening in the power sector within Kenya. We do know we have really gone big on geothermal. There are plans to go big on wind power, as well as other energy sources, just to diversify and get a greater energy mix. For KenGen, what does this rights issue mean moving forward?
Okay, Abby, what the rights issue means for KenGen is this. We have a pipeline of projects for the next 5 years. Our current capacity is 1,618 megawatts. And we intend to raise that capacity by about 720 megawatts, 630 of which will be geothermal, and 90 megawatts will be wind. So that's the total. And the rights issue, where we are raising 28.8 billion Kenya shillings, will then help us to be able to finance this project.
Yes.
And
perhaps looking at the list of projects that you are looking to attain in the set timelines, we know Kenya has an ambitious power plan to generate 5,000 megawatts by next year, if I'm not wrong. This was one of the key pledges by the Jubilee government. How are we doing? So far, I know we are at about 2,600 thereabout.
Okay, so the current installed capacity is about 2,300 megawatts. I think between 2013 and today, the country has put in about 1,000 megawatts, which is not very bad, because the demand has also not risen as much as was expected.
What's our demand?
Our current demand recorded is about 1,600. I say recorded because when that demand is recorded in the evening, there are people who are off supply, so we say it's suppressed. But if everybody was connected, we could say the demand would be about 2,000 megawatts.
Okay.
So if you look at the demand then at 1,600 and the installed capacity at 2,300 megawatts, the reserve margin is not too big, considering that sometimes some of the plants will be out on maintenance. The hydro generation right now is very good because of the good rains, but there are times when it's dry and that capacity comes down. Yes.
So you're looking at this 5,000 megawatts. There are people who come out saying that we might not attain it. I don't know, what's your position on this?
Okay, in terms of attaining the 5,000 megawatts, which was a very ambitious target that the government gave, because sometimes it's good to stretch yourself, particularly when you consider the fact that for a long time, Kenya has been short of power, and we've been depending on emergency power to fill in the gap that we had. So it was good for government to come up with an ambitious project to show that we are ready to give the country enough power. And because of that, we've actually been able to come quite far, because for the first time in Kenya for a very long time, we now have sufficient power to meet the demand. So we are not quite there, and we may not be able to meet the 5,000 target, but at least we are moving to meet the demand and even have some spare capacity.
Mr. Mogo, there are those who feel that we might end up having excess supply, and this could turn out to be costly for the country.
Okay, yes, that debate has been there. In fact, this morning we're in a meeting with our CS, Minister of Energy and Petroleum, and that same question was asked. But the point is this, we are not just developing these projects without monitoring what is happening. So we have a plan to stimulate demand through encouraging people to put up industries. In addition to that, the government has a very intensive project to ensure that every Kenyan has got electricity. Currently, 50% of Kenyans are connected to electricity. The government has a target of 2017 end to have 70% access to electricity and universal access by 2020. So we are not just increasing the capacity for generation, but the demand is also being built up in connecting people. And there's also the last mile project, which will ensure that the power lines are within a mile of any settlement, in which case then it will be easy for people to connect. Industries will be stimulated in the rural areas as the electricity is provided. The standard gauge railway will soon be commissioned, and after some time it will be running on electricity.
Speaking about these projects,
Yes.
how much are they likely to consume once they come on stream?
I think like for the standard gauge railway, we are talking of anything about 400 to 500 megawatt. We understand that in the steel smelting and other industries, we could raise as much as 1,000 megawatts of demand. In the, for example, the Konza city, we could end up with as much as 500 megawatt. So there are quite a number of areas where big demand will be seen. So we are not likely to be stranded with the capacity that we are putting on grid, and we are monitoring that so that should we find that the demand is not rising as much, we can still scale down in some of the projects. Yes.
And let's go back to the rights issue.
Yes.
Looking at this particular cash call,
Yes.
how do Kenyans tap into this? Because the big question out there is, okay, KenGen is floating a rights issue. What does it mean to the ordinary mwananchi out there on the streets? How can they come on board?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. First of all, a rights issue or a cash call is usually a process where the company goes to the existing shareholders and says, I've got these projects that I want to do. I need some cash from the shareholders, even as I try to borrow money so that I can implement the project.
Yeah.
That's the basic definition of a rights issue. So first and foremost, you're giving the right to the shareholders. But in this instance, the process that we are on now, we are also not closing it out to the other Kenyans, and we are saying, should there be a Kenyan who is not ready to take his right, the other Kenyans who do not hold shares in KenGen will be given an opportunity also to buy the shares. So we have said that the rights issue closes on 10th of June, but we are giving another week so that those who do not own any shares can also put in their demand looking at what has been left. We are calling that the ramp, and they'll be given an opportunity also to get some shares. So it is not lost for those who do not have shares in KenGen.
Right. So how do they stand to benefit?
They stand to benefit because right now we are selling these shares at 655 Kenya shillings.
Yes.
And we believe that's almost like the lowest that this share could be.
Yeah.
So in the days to come, the shares will appreciate in value, so there will be gains when the share appreciates. In addition to that, KenGen has been very consistent in paying dividends. And so when you become a shareholder in KenGen, you'll also be part of the people who will be receiving dividends from the company.
All right. And looking across the market, we've seen a number of financial institutions that have raised rights issues. The response hasn't been that promising. I don't know, what's the case? What are you feeling about this particular rights issue?
Okay, I think what I could say is, first of all, KenGen has been very successful. Right from 10 years ago when we went on our initial public offer, which was very successful. And then in 2009, we had a public infrastructure board where we raised to about 25 billion Kenya shillings, and it was oversubscribed.
Yeah.
And we used that money to do various projects which are helping us now to have sufficient power. So even as we come to the rights issue, talking to various investors and shareholders, they seem to be very keen to buy the rights.
All right.
Yes, so we're very hopeful.
And Mr. Mugo, before we wrap up, there's a question we asked Kenyans today, and we asked them, do you think Kenya has done enough to bring down the cost of power? I repeat that question. Do you think Kenya has done enough to bring down the cost of power? Well, let me sample a few of these tweets that we have received. One of the people that have sent in their tweets is, let me kick it off with Kedode David Vishao. He's saying, not yet. Still, the 15,000 decrease is yet to be effected. We export, yet ourselves we are not connected. Many thanks, Kedode, there. I know the CEO is taking notes. We also have another one from Dream Market Traders. They are asking, more can still be done to bring down cost of power, which will translate into reduced cost of production. The other tweet is coming in from Gishuna Mwangi at Gishuna M. He's asking, until a unit goes down to 10 and the regular blackouts are contained, no. Another one saying, let me pick the last one. Wilson Onyangao, he's saying, I think the government has done a commendable job for lowering the cost of installation. And, well, those are some of the questions. I don't know, have we done enough in bringing down the cost of power? And by how much has it dropped? And how much are we looking for it to drop by, perhaps by 2017?
Okay, what I would say is we have done a lot. To give you an example, in July 2014, the cost of fuel charge per kilowatt hour stood at 7 shillings and 51 cents. Today, the cost of fuel per kilowatt hour stands at 2 shillings and 31 cents. And that was largely because of the geothermal 280 megawatts that we brought in 2014 and early 2015. So clearly, that's quite a huge reduction. In terms of moving forward, the projects that we have lined up are geothermal projects. There are others that are coming in from wind, not only from KenGen, but also from other power developers. And I believe that going on towards 2017, I cannot quote a figure, but we expect to see a reduction in tariff as well as stabilization of that tariff.
Any estimates?
No, I don't have a figure for now, but we just need to watch it. Thank you very much, Avi.
We've been speaking to Albert Mugo, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Kenya Electricity Generating Company, KenGen. I know a lot of Kenyans confuse KenGen with KPLC, but they are the people that actually get this power from different sources, and then KPLC distributes. Many thanks, Mr. Mugo, and we will be having a lot of expectations around what the power bills will be looking like in the coming months. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we still have a lot lined up for you, including that particular interview with Abigail Wangombe, who will be speaking to us shortly about women in business. Share your views and your thoughts. All this after this commercial break.